All right, everybody. Super excited to dive into this next content block. We have Ryan Embree from Practice Ignition, who heads up partnerships over there. And a couple fun facts about Ryan. He's worked in all of the four international Practice Ignition offices. He is a golfer and skier. And if you want to learn more, it's practiceignition.com. We're really excited to dive into this presentation because Practice Ignition has become one of our most common zaps we've seen in our community. But like with many new tools, people say, what does it do and how would it work with Zapier and what some things we can do? So I'm going to hand over the baton to Ryan to chat about Practice Ignition for the next couple minutes. Really excited to dive in. It's a question we get a lot from our community. So Ryan, I'm going to go ahead and hand the baton over to you. If you want to dive in and take it away, I know you got a presentation all set and ready, but hey, thanks for joining us.
Cool. Thank you for that introduction, David, and really excited to be on today's session. Good to hear from Heather Satterley as well. I think it's always useful, and I learned something from hearing Heather, setting up different automations. So yeah, I think we're really excited now that Jetpack is connected to Zapier. Some really awesome automations that David was just mentioning that some of you guys have already set up. So just wanted to today run through just a quick overview of, what exactly is Practice Ignition, talk about what kind of problems and value you got to Practice Ignition compared to Jetpack and what each application would be for in that workflow. And yeah, we'll just show you a little sneak peek on what that would look like. So I can share, correct? Yes.
Yep, you should be all set up to share.
No?
Yeah, looks
right.
Good. We can see your screen.
Awesome. Let me just present. Cool. So yeah, let's get right into it. As he mentioned, my name is Ryan. I work in the partnerships team, so I have the pleasure of working with other apps that we work with, like Jetpack Workflow. So really excited today to be here and share a bit more about what we do at Practice Ignition. So Practice Ignition at its core is proposal to paid in one place. So we are really focused on that first point of contact between you and your clients. So once you have that great sales conversation, you think you're going to win a new client, being able to quickly and easily sending off a proposal to your client, being able to lay out that engagement letter, the scope of work, your pricing. I know that's probably a hot button topic as well we could talk about too. And being able to collect that digital signature and really trigger what's next in your workflow. So once you've got that client, being able to kick off those jobs into Jetpack Workflow would be kind of that next step, and probably a whole bunch of other tasks that need to happen in your onboarding process that Heather was mentioning, and I think you guys get another presentation talking a bit more about that onboarding steps as well. So Practice Ignition was actually founded by an accountant, a guy named Guy Pearson in Sydney, Australia. So Guy was running an accounting firm and basically grew that firm from sole practitioner, started himself, up to a top 100 size firm in Australia. When he was growing his firm, though, he kind of ran into a whole bunch of pain points along the way. He was kind of a tech guy by background, worked with a lot of tech companies as clients, and he couldn't find a solution in the market to solve his problems. So he decided to leave his accounting firm and start Practice Ignition. So very much everything we've built is with the accountant in mind, and coming directly out of an accounting firm as our first customer. So what are the problems that Guy was looking to solve when he created Practice Ignition? Really, it came around that initial engagement letter process with his clients. So he, like many of you, might use a very advanced application called Microsoft Word to do your engagement letters every year. And what does that process look like? It means going in there, finding and replacing the names and dates, putting in your pricing, and then maybe you print, sign, scan, send it off to your clients. Maybe you are sending it by email or maybe in person. But what we find that can take upwards of 2 hours per client. Let's say you've got 200 tax clients for that upcoming year. That's going to be a really not so great job for you or someone on your team coming up. So I think it's kind of timely to be talking about engagement letters as we get ready for the new year. And then we think about what's that client experience like when you do send them off a Word document engagement letter and they have to figure out what exactly you're doing for them, what is the value you're providing, what's the pricing, and then they do have to go through that process of print, sign, scan, get it back to you. So again, really not a great first impression. And if you think about this, this isn't connected into any other system. And I think what we kind of solve for next is how do we link that into your payments and invoicing process? So at this point, you're sending off the initial engagement to the client. But you also have to figure out how you're going to get paid. And I think that was another big thing when Guy started Practice Ignition was, he wanted to move to a monthly recurring revenue model in his firm. So he didn't want to go through this process every month of, hey, let's send the client an invoice and then kind of wait for them to pay on their own terms. He was doing the work. He was incurring costs. He still had rent and staff. So he wanted to make sure there was no awkward conversations about accounts receivable, just wanted to be getting paid automatically upfront every month. So again, back to kind of the problems that we wanted to solve. It's proposal and engagement letter creation process, being able to get paid, and then ultimately being able to track your engagements. So for us, it's building and integrating into different workflow tools such as Jetpack Workflow. So once you have an engagement letter get signed, how can then we kind of trigger off those jobs to take place in Jetpack Workflow so no work goes through the cracks? And if we know if every job that you have has a signed engagement letter, your team's going to know what to do and when. And you'll be able to deliver an excellent service to your clients as well. So what does Practice Ignition actually look like? So we talked about the problems, but with Practice Ignition, you can send off a beautiful looking digital proposal that lays out that scope of work that you're going to do. So it's broken up into different services. So Jetpack, you've got your jobs. So think of just matching up your services to your jobs. So if you do bookkeeping, you'd have a service for that, and then you'd have a job back in Jetpack for your bookkeeping. One thing that's really exciting to announce in terms of our proposals, this is one of our most requested features. Now you can actually present multiple options to your clients. So I know many of you might be into value pricing. What this allows you to do then is you could perhaps package a few different services up, maybe bronze, silver, gold, and then actually allow your clients to pick which package they'd like. And then from there, once they accept, we trigger off the jobs and onboarding tasks necessary. So really excited to announce that. That just went into beta last week. Accepting payments. So again, we collect off ACH and credit card. So actually when we're presenting that proposal, we're capturing that payment information up front. They can't sign that engagement letter until they actually put that information in. And lastly, we're going to get that e-signature. So similar to if you were getting an e-signature through another platform, or perhaps a client was doing that print, sign, scan, we make sure that every client will have a signed engagement letter and stored in the system. So how does this kind of link up? What kind of happens next? So the big trigger, we were just showing Zapier before. I think it's important to understand actions and triggers. So the triggers that come out of Practice Ignition would be when your proposals get accepted. So let's say we had a brand new client come in, we sent the proposal for bookkeeping and a 1040 and some tax planning. They accept that proposal. What happens next? Based on that Zap, we'll be able to delineate those different services into different jobs. We can then assign those jobs accordingly to our certain staff. So once they go ahead and hit sign and accept, that work's going to get created automatically in Jetpack, and your team can get going straight away. So really, I think there were some points earlier on what's that time savings. Said 30 minutes. I would say it's maybe even a couple hours, and also just so much more visibility in your team between, maybe you're doing the selling and the service as well. But if you have someone selling and someone providing the service, you really want to make sure that that line of communication is clear, and connecting Practice Ignition and Jetpack really makes sure that nothing can slip through the cracks. So conscious of time here, but just wanted to show you a sneak peek into Zapier. We just did show, but this is just a screenshot. So within Jetpack, you would have your job template. So in this case, we would have, the 1040 job template, and then you just map that up to a service in Practice Ignition. And then we'd pull across those managers as well from Jetpack. So if you got your different staff members in there, we can just assign them accordingly. We can also actually just push in that engagement letter as well into Jetpack. So you actually get that link to the signed engagement letter back in Jetpack once they sign. You could automatically set up a due date for that too. So super powerful stuff. I think our team, we've got some support documentation, and Jetpack does as well. So we're definitely here to help and see what we can do to really help you optimize that workflow as you get ready for the new year, and kind of connect all those applications together. So it's a really seamless process when you go out to send those engagements for the new year. So I think I'm right around time. Thank you, David and the Jetpack team, for having us on. I've only sat in for a little bit, but this seems like a really awesome event. Yeah, maybe if anyone has any questions, I don't even know if I have time for that. But you can reach me at ryan@practiceignition.com. And I will put in, a link right there. If you were wanting to see a demo, just a demo booking link, kind of walk through that one-on-one with our team.
Amazing. Hey, Ryan, thanks so much. Like I mentioned, Practice Ignition comes up a lot in our community, so it's really fun to get an overview of the possibilities with Practice Ignition. And, for folks that are going in and checking out our Zapier integration, we had built out some templates with Practice Ignition. So, when somebody signs an agreement, if you wanted to create a client in Jetpack, or if you wanted to kick off some onboarding work in Jetpack, you can do that inside of Zapier. Ryan, thanks for coming on, and be sure to check out Practice